Welcome to the world of Elemental, where fire, water, land, and air residents coexist in a place called Element City. Today, we're diving deep into the creation, the characters, and the hidden gems of this Pixar masterpiece, so buckle up and get ready to be blown away by these fascinating facts about Elemental.
Welcome to ChannelFrederator, the cartoon central of the internet. Before we begin, we publish new videos every week, so be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. And with that out of the way, let's get into the video.
Number 1. Elemental is a film that hits close to home for its director Peter Sohn. The story is based on his life, with his parents immigrating to the USA from Korea, not speaking a word of English, and settling into the Bronx. They even opened up a grocery store named Sohn's Fruits and Vegetables, similar to Ember's family opening up their store in the film. Number 2. The opening of the film really celebrates immigration. Sohn hadn't thought about it that way initially. He was very naive as a kid and a bit of a jerk to his parents because growing up in that world, he didn't realize how hard it was to be a new immigrant. Number 3. The movie really and truly relates to Sohn's own experiences, like assimilating into a new culture at a young age, but also marrying outside of his community, causing a bit of a culture clash. Number 4. Producer Denise Ream also relates to this, as her grandparents came to America from Ireland. Number 5. The film is meant to be universal, as everyone comes from somewhere. Number 6. Every member of the crew was encouraged to bring their own personal stories to the table. One scene in particular that came as a result was when Ember's parents looked for an apartment only to have doors shut in their faces. This story came from a story artist named Bolhem Buchiba, who actually ended up storyboarding the scene. Number 7. Sohn's parents passed away during the production of the movie, making it even more emotionally resonant. Number 8. He dedicated the movie to his parents and wants the movie to encourage everyone to go home and hug their parents if they can. Number 9. The creation of Elemental required Pixar to upgrade and buy more computers. The film used over 151,000 cores spread across 3 large rooms on the Pixar campus. For comparison, Toy Story had 294 cores, Monsters Inc. had 672 cores, and Finding Nemo had 923. So yeah, 151,000. Number 10. The final frame of Elemental was approved on Friday, March 24th, 2023. Sohn was moved to tears when wrapping up the project. Number 11. And speaking of tears, Sohn says that he'd be a water elemental if he lived in Element City because he's a big crybaby. Number 12. The film's plot revolves around Ember, a fire element who loves working at her family's convenience store but struggles with her fiery temper. When a plumbing accident at the store summons Wade, a water element health inspector, the two meet and fall in love. The story explores their journey as they navigate the differences and challenges posed by their elemental natures. Number 13. The movie was pitched based on the idea of fire and water connecting, and if this was even possible. Number 14. The movie started with Ember. Sohn wanted to build a city that would support Ember's journey of identity and belonging, which led to many design choices being made that would support the plot in unique ways. Number 15. Element City consists of key districts designed for the various elements who settled there. The city evolved as each element arrived. Number 16. Water was there first, establishing the canal system among other foundational aspects of the city. Number 17. Earth followed. The city is built on a delta where earth and water meet. Number 18. Air was next, and much later, fire. The city isn't well suited to fire as a result. This approach underscores the fact that Ember is forced out of her comfort zone into a city that she's never before explored. Number 19. You might think that creating fire or air characters would be the most challenging task for the animation team. However, it was the water characters that proved to be the hardest obstacle. Water required the use of reflection and refraction, so the team used some cheats to make the characters both realistic and cartoony. The water characters have an outline that helps define the character's body and expressions, along with an always flowing exterior so they feel and look like water and not glass. Number 20. The lighting for Wade changed in every shot, and he could look like anything from jelly to a ghost with just a minor adjustment. Number 21. Elemental took 7 years to make, both in the studio and at home. Number 22. The pairing of fire and water people as the main characters was Elemental. The immediate tension and conflict between these two elements created a visual punch of opposites. Designing the characters to embody this idea was a challenge. Number 23. The team had to create new software and overcome technical hurdles to bring the characters of Ember and Wade to life. Number 24. The concept required the team to understand that each character literally embodies their element. Character supervisor Jeremy Talbot said that Ember is fire, she's not something on fire. Wade is water, he's not something wet. Number 25. This made walk cycles particularly challenging as each element would have to move in completely unique ways. Number 26. The singular nature of the characters in Elemental forced Pixar to rethink when the effects department would get involved. On a typical Pixar project, the effects team wouldn't start working until after the characters had been designed and animation had been completed. Number 27. Of course, the technical aspects of these characters have to support the personalities and characteristics of the elements as well. When developing Elemental, Son had to think about what water and fire really were and how that would play out in a story. Number 28. Son said that fire is often seen as temper and passion, but that you have to look deeper and see what it really means to burn bright. Number 29. Contrasting this, water is transparent, so Wade, described as a go-with-the-flow guy, is prone to tears at unexpected moments, an emotional trait that director Peter Sohn admits he shares. Number 30. Taking these opposites and finding the Venn diagram where they overlap was the basis of everything that would come to be an Elemental. Number 31. The screenplay was written by Brenda Sue, who was a creative consultant for Turning Red. Number 32. The portrayal of Element City was inspired by many earlier live-action films. The Pixar creative team turned to the great filmmakers of the past for inspiration on inventing an entire big city and making it appear lush and attractive. They looked at how cities were shot in classic films like Roman Holiday and were inspired by the work of the late cinematographer Gordon Willis. Number 33. Despite the film's rich backstory and sweeping visuals, the theme of Elemental is simple and personal. It's about wanting to thank our parents for the sacrifices they've made and connecting to something that feels real and truthful. This personal journey is at the heart of the film, making it relatable to kids, adults, and families alike. Number 34. Ember Lumen is voiced by Leah Lewis, who's best known for her roles as Ellie Chu in The Half of It and Georgia Fawn in CW's Nancy Drew series. Number 35. Her performance in The Half of It showcased her voice, which really stood out to Son. He heard how raspy and smoky it was, but she also had great vocal control. This is what made her perfect for the role of Ember. Number 36. Wade Ripple is voiced by Mamadou Athie, who starred in Netflix's Uncorked and the show Oh Jerome No. Number 37. He was a shoo-in for the role after Son saw his performance in Oh Jerome No. His ability to cry realistically and humorously is what really sold his performance. Number 38. The film features several celebrity voice actors in its international dubs. In the European French dub, actors Adele Exarchopoulos and Vincent Lacoste play Ember and Wade respectively. Number 39. Pixar regular Ronnie Del Carmen provided the voice of Bernie, Ember's father. Number 40. Kai Ava Hauser, a non-binary voice actor, plays Wade's non-binary sibling, Lake. It's nice to see casting that aligns with the identity of the character. Number 41. Lake also has a girlfriend, and the girlfriend's name will surely perk up the ears of animation lovers. Her name is Ghibli, a clear reference to the beloved anime production studio Studio Ghibli. Number 42. There are a few less big names than one would expect in this Pixar flick. One cast member who may stand out to some is Joe Pera, a comedian best known for his Adult Swim series Joe Pera Talks With You. Pera voices Fern Grouchwood, an overgrown Earth Elemental. Number 43. Of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the talents of Catherine O'Hara, Canadian superstar and Schitt's Creek alum who voices Wade's widowed mother. Number 44. There's also a cute little mascot-like character named Claude, played by Mason Wertheimer. He's been described as a Jiminy Cricket type, seeing something in Ember that she doesn't see yet herself. Number 45. The film was announced in May of 2022 with the general themes being introduced, and Son was announced as the director. Number 46. In September of that very same year, during the D23 Expo, a first look at the film was shown, featuring a scene where Ember and Wade are walking through the park. Wade tries to impress Ember by making a rainbow across the water. Number 47. The The film debuted at the 76th Cannes Film Festival on May 27, 2023, and received praise for its animation, musical score, and emotional depth. However, some critics found its storytelling underwhelming. Number 48. The film was released in the United States on June 16, 2023. Number 49. The film's release was delayed in the United Kingdom and Ireland to July 7, 2023, making it one of the few modern American films to be delayed from a UK release. Number 50. This is Pixar's first true rom-com, and it takes cues from romantic films like Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, Moonstruck, and Emily. Number 51. Beyond just being a love story about two individuals, Elemental is also a family love story. The relationship between Ember and her father is particularly important, as it shows what a parent will sacrifice to allow their kids to pursue their dreams. Number 52. Following in this genre vein, Elemental does not have a villain. Instead, the film focuses on life, family, and relationships. This unique approach adds depth to the story and makes it more relatable to audiences. Number 53. As of July 5th, Elemental has grossed over $195 million worldwide against a budget of $200 million. Number 54. Elemental had the lowest 3-day weekend debut for a Pixar film since Toy Story, which premiered in 1995 in far fewer theaters than Elemental and earned $29.1 million without adjusting for inflation. Number 55. Element City, the setting for Elemental, is a thriving, colorful metropolis home to interconnected communities of people made of the 4 elements of classical lore: water, fire, air, and earth. The city is designed to reflect the diversity and vibrancy of a real-world immigrant neighborhood, much like the Bronx, where director Peter Sohn grew up. Number 56. The design of Element City was inspired by cities and architecture all over the world, including Venice and Amsterdam. The team researched port cities to understand how a country welcomes people in, and other immigration hubs around the world. They also looked at buildings in Brazil with earth designs and buildings in the Middle East with watery shapes. Number 57. The production team spent many hours watching point-of-view city tours on YouTube to get inspiration for Element City, as they were unable to travel to cities like Venice and Amsterdam for research due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Number 58. Ember's parents, Bernie and Cinder, voiced by Ronnie Del Carmen and Sheila Omi, run a bodega-like shop in Element City. The shop specializes in imports from Fireland and other fire-friendly products, reflecting the immigrant experience of establishing businesses that cater to their home country's needs in a new land. Number 59. Some examples of fire products at the store are kids' juice boxes, which are actually small kerosene cans with metal straws, and lighter fluid baby formula. Ember delivers bags of wood chips, not potato chips, and Fireplace sells sparklers. Buy 2, get 1 free by the cash register. Number 60. Director Peter Sohn used to imagine the periodic table as a series of apartment buildings with individual apartments in which Cobalt would live next door to Nickel. This childhood imagination influenced the creation of Elemental. For example, the Waitrose schedule features a similar shape, and a park in the film called Periodic Park has a grassy grid that's reminiscent of the periodic table. Number 61. Filmmakers used color to help convey Ember's emotions. When she loses her temper, the color of her flames goes from yellow, orange, red hues to purple and nearly white. Number 62. Filmmakers working to frame each sequence allowed for up to a 15% growth of a fire character's flames, ensuring the whole character would be visible without completely filling the frame. Number 63. Animators referenced footage of water balloons to inspire how Wade's internal water volume might flow between poses. His form breaks on occasion with water droplets, and he has the ability to flow into and out of external water sources. Number 64. Pixar is known for hiding Easter eggs in their films that represent past projects, future ones, and even outside influences. In Elemental, director Peter Sohn and producer Denise Ream's favorite Easter eggs come not from other movies, but from their personal lives. For instance, there's a chair from the university that Ream attended in Fire-ish. Number 65. Sohn also included a tribute to Ralph Eggleston, the person who hired him at Pixar 23 years ago and who passed away the previous year. This hidden tribute to Eggleston comes in the form of a sign reading "Eat at Ralph's, 2 cents." Number 66. Of course, Pixar got an A113 Easter egg in here, a classic reference to a CalArts classroom that many staff once learned in. Elemental's reference to A113 comes in a unique form, as the movie uses the periodic table to help pull it off. The Wetco transit sign for Element City includes 3 symbols for different train lines, A, H, and AL, with the first in a circle and the latter 2 in squares. H is the atomic symbol for hydrogen, which has an atomic number of 1 on the periodic table. Al is the symbol for aluminum, which has the atomic number 13. Therefore, the sign is coded A113. Number 67. Elemental includes another classic Pixar Easter egg by showing the Pizza Planet truck. The iconic vehicle debuted in Toy Story and has become the studio's signature hidden detail, as a version of it has appeared in every movie. Number 68. The planet on the Science Club poster during a flashback of Wade's past is an Easter egg referring to Pixar's next film, Elio. It closely resembles the concept art revealed at the D23 Expo. Number 69. There's also a secret Elio character included as one of Elemental's Easter eggs. Producer Denise Ream confirmed in an interview that there is a character from the upcoming movie hidden somewhere in this movie. Number 70. There are plenty of Elemental pun Easter eggs as well. This comes naturally since much of the film takes place in a bodega-like store, and the majority of these puns are themed around fire or wood-themed products. Number 71. The air elemental characters at play in Elemental might seem somewhat familiar to Pixar aficionados, as the air people in many ways resemble the look of Gus, the main cloud featured in Son's short, Partly Cloudy. Number 72. At the movie theater in Element City, there's a poster for a movie called The Good Elephant, a parody of Peter Son's movie The Good Dinosaur. Number 73. Of course, Wade and Ember are at the theater to see something currently playing. The marquee reveals that they're attending a screening of Tide and Prejudice, a water-themed version of the Jane Austen romance novel Pride and Prejudice. Number 74. There's also a comic at the fireplace, which seemingly features the character Arlo on the cover. Number 75. The Cars franchise gets a special shoutout from Pixar through the inclusion of Flagstone tires. An ad for Flagstone tires is shown on the signs at the stadium during the Windbreakers and Crop Dusters game. How about those team names though? Number 76. The characters Ember and Wade were inspired by the personalities of Son and his wife. Ember's hot temper reflects Son's wife's passionate nature, while Wade's emotional nature mirrors Son's own personality. Number 77. Another personal tie-in comes in the form of Ember's struggle. She's torn between being with Wade or following in her parents' footsteps and running the family business, reflecting not only Son's personal experience, but that of many of the animators and storytellers. Number 78. Elemental is the 4th animated film scored by Thomas Newman, following Finding Nemo, WALL-E, and Finding Dory. Number 79. Carl's Date, a Pixar short featuring characters from Up, yes, that includes Doug, played before the movie, marking the first time in 5 years that a short was played before a Pixar film. The last time this happened was before The Incredibles 2 in 2018. Number 80. Speaking of Up, Peter Son just so happens to be the inspiration for the young and energetic Boy Scout Russell. Number 81. Some of the promotional posters for Elemental were parodies of previous Pixar films and were posted online. However, Ember's poster, which parodied Turning Red, was quickly taken down due to the Canadian wildfires that were happening at the time. Number 82. Elemental was first hinted in the Pixar film Lightyear on a drink called Wade Water. I wonder if something like that's in bad taste in Element City. Number 83. The language of the fire people, known as Firish, was based on the sounds fire makes. David J. Peterson of Game of Thrones and Dune fame created this language. Number 84. Peterson has named Jessie Sams as a co-creator of Firish and has criticized the lack of credit she's received for her work on this language. Number 85. Leah Lewis went through a long 3-step audition process. This process included 2 auditions on Zoom and a 6-hour in-person audition. Number 86. Mamadou Athif found the recording studio work to be shockingly exhausting. He described the process as draining but exhilarating, as he had to put every bit of himself into the performance, creating images in his mind and doing take after take. Number 87. Leah Lewis also shared her thoughts on the pressures of playing a character who will soon populate store shelves in the form of Pixar merchandise. She described the experience as crazy and unreal, especially considering she used to buy such merchandise as a child. Number 88. Both Lewis and Athie highlighted the importance of director Peter Sohn's guidance during the recording process. His direction helped them understand their characters better and deliver performances that would resonate with audiences. Number 89. Despite the physical separation of the recording booth, Lewis and Athie managed to form a strong emotional connection with their characters. Number 90. The design challenges that came with injecting soul into fire and water elements were immense. He drew two hands, one of water, one of fire, coming together. They didn't touch, but the temperature from one hand would heat the water to its boiling point, and then there'd be a cooling down effect. It was kind of like goosebumps when you were about to touch someone for the first time. Number 91. During the early stages of character design, Ember looked terrifying, sort of like a monster out of The Lord of the Rings. The team had to work hard to control the flame and make Ember look less intimidating and more appealing. Number 92. The filmmakers interviewed over 100 first and second generation immigrants at Pixar about their personal experiences to develop the story. Building from this variety of experiences, the Fire People, the latest group of elemental beings to immigrate to Element City, are depicted via a range of cultural signifiers. Number 93. The city's also pretty accurate when it comes to how immigrants got there. The filmmakers researched various ports and entryways used all across the world. Number 94. Of course, the boiling point of water was well researched as well, to make sure nobody could come in and hit them with an actually. Number 95. During pre-production, it was suggested that Wade and Ember have a baby made of steam. A fun idea for sure, and one that opens up a lot of possibilities for other elemental hybrids, but it didn't end up making it into the movie. Number 96. With all of the talk of the four elements, some folks might assume that Elemental was partially inspired by Avatar: The Last Airbender. Fans of Aang and the gang would be a little disappointed though, as Sohn has dismissed any such connection. He loves the show and watched it with his kids, but feels the two worlds are very different. No martial arts in Elemental. Number 97. There are sports though. The most popular yet fictional game in Element City is called Airball. Number 98. Lots of different technology was designed to make Element City feel even more complete. Production designer Don Shank says design elements inspired new technology, which inspired new design. Gotta love when inspiration gives way to more inspiration. Number 99. The look for the movie ended up landing on a delicate balance between physics logic and cartoony appeal, says Shank. Number 100. As the way each one developed over time would shape their world. That's how the Fire People ended up making things like glass and ceramics. Number 101. This idea extended out into the world at large, with things like cooking pots, stove burners, and more being incorporated into Fire People architecture. Number 102. Elemental features an original song performed by Love called Steal the Show. It plays during Ember and Wade's first date, as well as during the end credits. Number 103. When the movie was first announced, a lot of people pointed out similarities to Fireboy and Water Girl, a series of cooperative puzzle platforming video games developed by Oslo Albet. These similarities are striking, but the idea of a fire-water duo is definitely not novel. Shark Boy and Lava Girl, anyone? Number 104. Early concept art shows a family of fire elementals having a super hot dinner of burning logs. Sohn said he thought it would be fun if the fire elementals loved to eat hot food. Number 105. At first, Sohn considered letting Ember do superhero-like things, shooting fire from her hands and the like. However, this didn't match the emotional tone of the movie. Number 106. Elemental was made from the ground up to be seen in 3D. It was always supposed to be seen on the big screen in that format and wasn't simply a post-conversion job. Number 107. Interestingly enough, Star Wars had a big impact on this movie. The idea of immaculate reality was often referred to during production, where the team would design things knowing that they had a fictional history. Even if that lore never played out on screen, the world would feel more real to audiences because of it. Sohn first heard about this idea from George Lucas on the making of Star Wars. And that's a wrap on our Elemental journey. We hope you enjoyed these 107 facts about Pixar's Elemental. Remember, just like the Lumen family, we all have a spark that makes us unique. Keep that flame alive, and until next time, remember, Frederator loves you.
Did you enjoy our list? What facts do you think we missed? Let us know in the comments below. And while you're there, like and subscribe to see more great videos every week. And remember, Frederator loves you.